reaction.
I thought the choice, the word of being fearful of the conversation after a game that she alluded to was interesting, because oftentimes it seems, at least in the larger discourse, and not that there's not an emotional experience for Caitlin Clark, because I believe that it is, but it's the folks that are accused of doing something outside of the parameters of competition that are actually the ones that are fearful when you look at their social medias. This is what I will say. Caitlin Clark is 24. She is a shining star in the galaxy of the WNBA. But I do think as she continues to matriculate through this league, there's room for a little bit more accountability and self-awareness in terms of her role in the larger sisterhood, if she sees it that way, in the WNBA. But Malika, I agree with her 100%. It is certainly exhausting for all of us who really want to celebrate where this league is and the beautiful basketball that is being played, this larger discourse that can...
That is the sentence that set everybody off, because Monica McNutt did not just react to Caitlin Clark saying the whole conversation around her can be exhausting. She flipped the pressure back onto Caitlin and said there is still room for more accountability, more self-awareness, and a bigger understanding of her role inside the WNBA sisterhood.
We're speaking about Caitlin Clark, and today she made it her business to pretty much say we need to worry about the black girls, the black women in the W, when the whole league been a black ran league. Like, this thing has nothing to do with race. Why do we keep trying to turn this into race? Y'all just mad because Caitlin Clark is a white woman that is getting all the love from mainstream media.
And that is why this conversation exploded so fast. Because the moment Caitlin Clark speaks honestly about how heavy the noise around her has become, the response from some corners of sports media is not, what exactly is she dealing with? It becomes, what does she still need to do better? That is the tension sitting under this entire story. Caitlin Clark is being asked to carry the league's visibility, sell the tickets, drive the television numbers, absorb the physicality, answer for her fans, answer for her critics, answer for every reaction to her existence, and then somehow still be more careful about how everybody else feels around her. That is a lot to put on one player, especially when the same people admitting that she is a shining star are also framing her like she has unfinished responsibility for a controversy she did not create by herself. But the part that really matters is not even the first clip. The real question comes later, when Monica's own past comments about Caitlin get pulled back into the conversation, because that is when this stops being one reaction and starts looking like a pattern.
So that was Monica McNutt, man, pretty much telling us that in a larger
honest reflection, but in totality, Monica,
what do you mean by that? Like, why y'all always trying to turn this into a race thing? And that's what makes me mad, bro. They always try to do that, and as a brother, I'm sitting here like, I know y'all ain't finna do that, bro. I know y'all ain't finna go down that rabbit hole. And they do it every damn time, bro. Every time it's something involving Caitlin Clark, the mainstream media do not agree with, they pull the erase card. Now, shout out to...
The host's frustration there is raw, but underneath the emotion is a real media question. Why does every Caitlin Clark conversation immediately get dragged away from basketball? Because Caitlin Clark did not enter the WNBA as just another rookie. She entered as a business event. She entered as a ratings event. She entered with college records, national attention, sold-out buildings, road arenas packed with new fans, and a fan base that the league had never really had to manage before at this size. That created two reactions at the same time. One side looked at the growth and said, finally the league has the spotlight it deserves. Another side looked at the same spotlight and said, wait, why did it take this particular player for everyone to care? And that is a fair question to discuss. But the problem is, when that discussion gets placed on Caitlin like a burden. Caitlin did not decide who television networks promoted. She did not decide which fans bought tickets. She did not decide which debate shows chased the loudest segments. She became the center of a storm that a lot of people helped build around her. So when Monica says Caitlin needs more accountability and self-awareness, the natural response is, accountability for what exactly? For her own words? Fair. For her own actions on the court? Fair. But for the entire national conversation attached to her name? That is where the standard starts getting impossible.
Let's listen.
I think it's a beautiful time, and I don't think anybody that is a part of this league or has covered this league, sure, we lament kind of keeping this little thing that we loved protected from all of the noise, right?
Right.
But in the same breath,
yeah,
the eyeballs and the visibility and the growth is better for all involved. I mean, frankly, John, like, Caitlin Clark got me here, right? You know what I mean? And
not true.
Well,
no, let me tell you this.
That clip is important because Monica herself said the quiet part out loud. Caitlin Clark got me here. That is not an insult. That is not disrespectful. That is actually the cleanest summary of what happened to women's basketball coverage. A lot of analysts, shows, podcasts, radio segments, YouTube channels, debate desks, and mainstream outlets got pulled deeper into the WNBA because Caitlin made the league unavoidable. And that does not mean the league did not already have stars. It did. It had champions, MVPs, Olympians, elite defenders, elite scorers, and personalities who deserved more coverage years ago. But deserving coverage and generating a national wave are not always the same thing. Caitlin Clark generated a wave. So when someone benefits from that wave, then turns around and says Caitlin still needs more awareness of the larger sisterhood, viewers hear a double standard. They hear her impact is useful when it raises the platform, but it becomes suspicious when the attention is too centered on her. That is the contradiction people are reacting to. Not just race, not just rivalry, not just one ESPN segment. It is the feeling that Caitlin is being praised as the engine when the league needs growth, then treated like a problem when that growth becomes uncomfortable.
Let's listen.
I think it has to show up in our storytelling, and it has to be encouraged by our families.
Yeah.
To me, right? And so covering the WNBA this past season, Caitlin Clark's rookie year, for all of the conversation that surrounded her, some which was fair and some which wasn't, the one thing that I cannot deny is the amount of little girls that were showing up to follow her. Little girls with their parents and the fervor and the energy there.
Why her?
Same thing.
Why her?
Well, I was just about to say same thing for Angel Reese when I had a chance to cover their games. But I think Caitlin represented, and again, some of this to me probably is not fair to her because it was not anything that she said or was truly based on her personality, but she was a white girl from the middle of America. And so she represented a whole lot to a lot of people, whether that is truly what she prescribed to or not. We can all say she is a dynamic basketball player and a force both on the court and the marketing sense. But I do think, same thing with folks that may have fallen in love with Angel Reese that may or may not have agreed with everything they had to say either. We attach our fandom to these icons for all types of.
Now, this is where the story gets more complicated, because Monica is not completely wrong that fans attach themselves to athletes for all kinds of reasons. That happens in every sport. Some people loved Allen Iverson for the handle. Some loved him because he represented rebellion. Some loved Tom Brady because he won. Some loved him because he became a symbol of something bigger than football. Some fans love Angel Reese because of her edge, confidence, and personality. Some fans love Caitlin Clark because of the logo threes, the passing, the Iowa story, and yes, for some, because she looks familiar to them culturally. That is not a shocking media analysis. Athletes become symbols whether they ask for it or not. But the key phrase is whether they ask for it or not. Monica even admits some of this is probably not fair to Caitlin because it was not based on anything Caitlin said or truly based on her personality. That should have been the center of the conversation. If it is not fair to put those projections on Caitlin, then why does Caitlin keep being asked to answer for those projections? That is the disconnect. You cannot say she did not choose the symbolism, then grade her like she is responsible for managing every piece of it. You cannot say other people attached meanings to her, then ask her to carry the consequences of meanings she never prescribed to. That is not accountability. That is making one player the cleanup crew for a national argument. And once that happens, the basketball gets buried. The game gets buried. Her actual play gets buried. The fact that she is changing coverages, changing ticket markets, changing road environments, changing how teams defend 30 feet from the basket, all of that gets pushed behind a culture war debate she did not script.
Angel Reese during the closing of the 2026 All-Star game. Angel Reese standing there like a frog on a log as they call for Caitlin Clark. Of course they're going to call for Caitlin Clark. She's the reason why they there. Like, let's just all be for real. Why these stadiums empty is because Caitlin Clark was there. And Caitlin Clark gave them the best show she could under Cheryl Reeve. Because we cannot forget the toxic Cheryl Reeve, the one that snubbed Caitlin Clark from being on the damn Olympic team, her and Don Staley.
This is where the WNBA All-Star Weekend becomes part of the bigger argument. Because whether people like it or not, the building reacted to Caitlin Clark differently. The cameras reacted to Caitlin differently. The crowd energy around Caitlin was different, and that is exactly what makes people uncomfortable. The host brings up Angel Reese standing there during the closing moment while Caitlin gets the crowd reaction, and that visual becomes bigger than the moment itself. It becomes a symbol of the league's central tension. A player who is one of the faces of the new WNBA era is standing right there, but the loudest reaction still follows Caitlin. Now, the fair version of this is simple. Angel Reese has her own fan base, her own brand, her own value, and her own place in the league. That should not be erased. But the other fair part is just as simple. Caitlin Clark is the biggest attendance and attention driver in the sport right now. Pretending that is not true does not protect the league. It makes the conversation less honest. That is why the sisterhood line rubbed people the wrong way. Sisterhood cannot mean everybody quietly resents the player bringing in the biggest crowd, then asks her to apologize for the crowd being there. Sisterhood has to be mature enough to say two things at once. Yes, the league had stars before Caitlyn, and yes, Caitlyn has changed the scale of the room. Those two truths can exist together.
All of that, like, have y'all been here? Don Staley, Cheryl Reeve, the lady from Connecticut, all snub Caitlin Clark for being on that Olympic team, damn near guaranteeing her a gold medal so Diana Taurasi could break some little record. And then make assault to injury. Diana Taurasi ain't even played. She rode the bench the whole damn Olympic.
Then the Olympics callback comes in. And whether you agree with the host's tone or not, the memory is important, because it explains why Caitlyn's fans do not view these media comments in isolation. They remember the Olympic debate. They remember the conversation around whether Caitlyn should have been on the roster. They remember the argument that she had not earned it yet, the counter-argument that the sport was missing a massive marketing opportunity, and the way the whole thing turned into another national referendum on whether Caitlyn's popularity was being respected or resented. That is why every new comment lands heavier. When Monica says Caitlyn needs more self-awareness, some fans do not hear one analyst making one point. They hear the next chapter in a long list of moments where Caitlyn is told she needs to understand everybody else's position, while very few people seem interested in understanding hers. And that is what Caitlyn was talking about in the first place. The exhaustion is not only from hard fouls. It is not only from social media. It is not only from debate shows. It is the combination. Every game becomes evidence in a national argument. Every quote gets decoded. Every facial expression gets used by one side or another. That is not normal rookie star pressure anymore. That is a full ecosystem built around one player.
Listen, shout out to Jamie Lardis. Let's
be honest reflection, but in totality, Monica, we don't often get to hear Caitlin Clark's perspective in quite this level of honesty. And this is an important conversation to continue to have with empathy for everybody involved. So listening to that, what was your reaction?
Listen to how the question is framed before Monica even answers. The setup says this is an important conversation to continue with empathy for everybody involved. That sounds balanced. It sounds careful. It sounds like the show is trying to be responsible. But the issue is where the empathy actually goes once the answer starts. Caitlyn says she is fearful of the conversation after certain games. Monica responds by saying the people accused of doing things outside the parameters of competition are actually the ones who are fearful when you look at their social media. That may be true in some cases. Players who get accused online can face ugly comments, threats, and harassment, and that should be condemned clearly. No athlete should be harassed because of a basketball play. No athlete should have their mentions flooded with abuse. That part is not complicated. But acknowledging that does not require minimizing Caitlyn's experience. It does not require turning her vulnerability into a lesson about what other people are going through. The empathetic answer would have held both realities at the same time. Caitlyn is dealing with an exhausting level of scrutiny, and other players have also been unfairly targeted by sections of the internet. Instead, the answer made viewers feel like Caitlyn's pain had to be immediately balanced, corrected, or redirected. And that is why the clip hit a nerve.
What was your reaction?
I thought the choice, the word of being fearful of the conversation after a game that she alluded to was interesting, because oftentimes it seems, at least in the larger discourse, and not that there's not an emotional experience for Caitlin Clark, because I believe that it is, but it's the folks that are accused of doing something outside of the parameters of competition that are actually the ones that are fearful when you look at their social medias. This is what I will say. Caitlin Clark is 24. She is a shining star in the galaxy of the WNBA. But I do think as she continues to matriculate through this league, there's room for a little bit more accountability and self-awareness in terms of her role in the larger sisterhood, if she sees it that way, in the WNBA.
This is the repeated part. But hearing it again matters, because the wording is doing a lot of work. Caitlin Clark is 24. That line makes her sound young, still learning, still needing guidance. Fair enough. She is young. Every young superstar has to grow. But then comes shining star in the galaxy of the WNBA. That acknowledges her place without denying the league around her. Again, fair enough. Then comes the turn. More accountability and self-awareness in terms of her role in the larger sisterhood. That is the phrase everyone is going to argue over, because it is vague enough to sound reasonable, but loaded enough to feel like a warning. What exact accountability? What exact role? What exact sisterhood obligation is Caitlyn failing to meet? If the answer is that Caitlyn should speak carefully and not inflame already tense situations, she has generally done that. If the answer is that she should condemn racism and harassment aimed at other players, that is a public responsibility many stars face, and it should be discussed in a precise way. But if the answer is that Caitlyn must somehow control the behavior of every fan, every commentator, every account using her name, and every media outlet chasing controversy, that is not realistic. And this is where the back third of the story finally pays off. The real problem is not that Monica criticized Caitlyn. Analysts criticize stars every day. The real problem is that the standard being applied to Caitlyn is expanding beyond her control. She is not just being judged for basketball, she is being judged for the entire meaning people attach to her basketball. That is why fans are angry. They feel like Caitlyn can score, pass, sell out arenas, lift television ratings, praise the league, take the hits, avoid the bait, and still be told she has not done enough emotional labor for everybody else.
But Malika, I agree with her 100%. It is certainly exhausting for all of us who really want to celebrate where this league is and the beautiful basketball that is being played. Yeah. This larger discourse that can be very disappointing.
Yeah, and I think that we all have a responsibility in seeing where we fit in that discourse, and what we are working to do on this show is focus in right there on the game that we all.
Then Malika brings it back to the game, and that line is supposed to close the controversy neatly. We all have a responsibility, and this show wants to focus on basketball. But that is exactly what people have been asking for. Focus on the basketball. Focus on why defenses pick Caitlyn up so high. Focus on why her passing bends weak side rotations. Focus on why the Fever's spacing looks different when the ball is in her hands. Focus on why buildings that used to have empty seats suddenly sound like playoff environments. Focus on why opposing players circle the matchup on the calendar, because they know the audience will be bigger. The strange thing is, everyone says they want to focus on basketball, but Caitlyn's basketball is rarely allowed to just be basketball. A hard foul becomes a social debate. A complaint to the refs becomes a character debate. A fan reaction becomes a race debate. A sold-out arena becomes a resentment debate. Even a simple, honest comment about exhaustion becomes a debate over whether Caitlyn understands her role in the sisterhood. That is not focusing on basketball. That is using basketball as the doorway into everything except the game. And this is where ESPN and the broader sports media have to be honest about their own incentive. These segments are not accidental. They know Caitlyn Clark drives engagement. They know Angel Reese drives engagement. They know Monica McNutt discussing Caitlyn will drive engagement. They know the words race, accountability, and sisterhood will travel farther online than a clean breakdown of pick-and-roll coverage. So everybody participates in the machine, then acts shocked when the machine gets loud.
So I am going to tell you this. The viral moment maybe brought you to some national attention. I have been loving what you do. You are such a good basketball analyst and announcer. I've been following you on the New York Knicks, you and O'Keefe. Some of my favorite moments are the two of you. O'Keefe is
Pat O'Keefe, my partner,
the play-by-play guy. I mean, you're so knowledgeable. I love basketball. I've been following the Knicks for 130 years.
Okay,
I love it.
all right, yep.
I was in the stands in Madison Square Garden.
And so she blatantly admitted Caitlyn Clark got her there.
The Stephen A. clip adds another layer because he is trying to compliment Monica and separate her national rise from only one viral Caitlyn moment. And that is fair. Monica knows basketball. She has put in the work. She has been on broadcasts, done analysis, and earned respect from people who watched her before this controversy cycle. But that actually makes the criticism sharper, not weaker. Because if you are a serious basketball analyst, people expect serious basketball framing. They expect precision. They expect you to separate Caitlyn Clark the player from Caitlyn Clark the symbol, Caitlyn Clark the marketing engine, Caitlyn Clark the fan base magnet, and Caitlyn Clark the media lightning rod. Those are not all the same thing. When those categories get blurred, the conversation becomes unfair. Caitlyn the player can be criticized for turnovers, shot selection, defensive mistakes, body language, technical fouls, or leadership moments. That is sports. That is normal. Caitlyn the symbol is something much bigger and messier, and it includes things that were projected onto her by fans, critics, networks, and even people who dislike her. So when the critique becomes, Caitlyn needs to be more accountable for her role in the larger discourse, it has to be specific. Otherwise it feels less like analysis and more like a cloud of guilt floating over one player. That is why so many viewers are pushing back. They are not saying Caitlyn is above criticism. They are saying the criticism keeps moving. First it was that she had to prove the hype. Then she had to prove she could handle physicality. Then she had to prove she could win. Then she had to prove she respected the veterans. Then she had to prove she was not responsible for the worst behavior of strangers online. At some point, the question becomes, when does the league simply let her be a basketball player?
We're showing up to follow her. Little girls with their parents and the fervor and the energy there.
Why her?
Same thing.
Why her?
Well, I was just about to say same thing for Angel Reese when I had a chance to cover their games. But I think Caitlyn represented And again, some of this to me probably is not fair to her because it was not anything that she said or was truly based on her personality, but she was a white girl from the middle of America. And so she represented a whole lot to a lot of people, whether that is truly what she prescribed to or not. We can all say she is a dynamic basketball player and a force both on the court and the market.
This part is also worth slowing down on because Monica points to something nobody should ignore. Little girls showing up to follow Caitlin. That is real. Parents bringing daughters to games, kids wearing jerseys, young players copying the deep threes, families who did not watch the WNBA before suddenly planning nights around it. That is not a small thing. That is the future customer base of the league. But watch how quickly even that positive gets complicated. Caitlin's appeal gets tied to being a white girl from the middle of America. Again, as cultural analysis, that may be part of the story. But if that becomes the dominant frame, it risks shrinking the basketball miracle into a demographic explanation. Because Caitlin did not become Caitlin Clark only because of identity. She became Caitlin Clark because she was pulling up from the logo in college arenas, packed like tournament games. She became Caitlin Clark because she passed like a point guard with eyes in the back of her head. She became Caitlin Clark because she made casual viewers feel like something could happen from anywhere on the court. The identity conversation may explain part of why some audiences connected so quickly. It does not explain the whole phenomenon. And when media people over-index on that part, fans feel like the game itself is being disrespected. The irony is that women's basketball has been asking people to take the product seriously for years. Caitlin brings in millions of people who are suddenly taking the product seriously, and then the conversation keeps telling them they are watching for the wrong reasons. That is a dangerous message for a growing league.
Years. Caitlin Clark is coming in and just setting the groundwork for a changing of guard, and that's exactly what has been happening since she's been in the league. Hell, look what just happened to Paige Beckers. Paige Beckers went into this thing thinking ESPN was gonna rock out with her, and they pretty much shedded more light on Caitlin Clark. She gets mad, go to the after party, damn near take off her clothes.
The Paige Buchers mention is messy, but it points to another truth about this new era. Attention is now a competitive resource. It is not just points, assists, rebounds, and wins. It is cameras. It is clips. It is who gets the chyron. It is who gets the promo package. It is who the network cuts to when the arena gets loud. It is who trends after the game, even if somebody else had the better stat line. That dynamic can create resentment, even when nobody says it out loud. Paige is a star. Angel is a star. Aja is a star. Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, Brianna Stewart, Nafisa Collier, Sabrina Ionescu. All of these players matter to the league, but Caitlin is currently the attention center. That does not mean she is the only great player. It means the market is reacting to her differently. The WNBA has to manage that carefully. If it pretends Caitlin is not the main driver, it looks dishonest. If it only promotes Caitlin and ignores everyone else, it creates resentment inside its own ecosystem. The smart path is not to downplay Caitlin. The smart path is to use Caitlin's spotlight as the front door and then introduce new fans to the rest of the league through better storytelling. That is where media coverage should be going. Not, Caitlin, do you understand what you represent? But now that Caitlin has brought more people into the building, how do we make sure they discover everyone else worth watching? That is a productive conversation. The guilt conversation is not.
I'm telling you, my brain is like a damn me portfolio archive of receipts of all the BS that W has been doing to Caitlin Clark. And one person that has been doing it for a mighty long time is none other than Monica McNutt. Monica McNutt has been spearheading for the last almost 3 years, these attacks on Caitlin Clark.
The host says he has receipts, and that is the language of this entire fan war now. Receipts, clips, old segments, old quotes, old tweets. Everybody is building a case file. That is another reason this story will not die. Every new comment gets matched against an old comment. Every analyst gets judged not just by what they said today, but by what fans believe they have been implying for months or years. That is why Monica's latest answer did not land as a standalone opinion. It landed as another receipt in a folder some Caitlin fans already had open. And to be fair, that can go too far. Sometimes fans hear criticism and immediately assume bad faith. Sometimes analysts make one clumsy point and get treated like they committed some grand conspiracy. That is not healthy either. A league cannot grow if every disagreement becomes a loyalty test, but there is also a reason the distrust exists. Caitlin fans have watched too many conversations start with basketball and end with character judgments. They have watched her get praised for impact, then questioned for the consequences of that impact. They have watched people enjoy the larger platform she helped create, then speak about her like the platform is something she needs to apologize for. So the receipts matter because they show not just what was said, but how often the framing returns to the same place. Caitlyn is special, but Caitlyn must be careful. Caitlyn is valuable, but Caitlyn creates problems. Caitlyn grows the league, but Caitlyn's growth comes with a warning label. That is the pattern viewers are reacting against.
So, yeah, leave y'all thoughts down in the comments section. Let me know if y'all think Monica McNutt is Ron Clark 2.0. Till next time, man, shake the damn haters off.
And that ending question is exactly where the audience splits. One side will say Monica McNutt is simply telling the truth, that a superstar in Caitlyn's position has to understand the environment around her. They will say leadership is not just scoring and passing, it is knowing how your words land, how your fans behave, and how your presence affects the locker room and the league. They will say Caitlyn is powerful now, and powerful athletes always get asked to carry more. The other side will say this is another example of media moving the goalposts on Caitlyn Clark. They will say she already gives the league historic attention, handles constant pressure, answers questions carefully, and still gets framed like she owes everyone more. They will say it is unfair to make her responsible for the ugliest corners of the internet while the same media outlets keep profiting from the controversy. The truth is that both sides can name something real. Caitlyn does have influence. Caitlyn should use her voice responsibly. Other players should not be harassed. The WNBA should not become a place where every foul turns into a personal attack. But Caitlyn also deserves the same basic fairness as every other player. Judge her for what she says, what she does, and how she plays, not for every meaning strangers attach to her. That is the line. And right now, too many people are blurring that line because Caitlyn Clark is the easiest player in the league to turn into a debate segment. She is the ratings engine, the attendance engine, the culture war magnet, the basketball phenomenon, and the media shortcut all at once. Everybody wants the traffic that comes with saying her name, but not everybody wants to be honest about their role in making the discourse so exhausting. So force yourself to pick a side on the real question. Was Monica McNutt giving Caitlyn Clark fair superstar accountability, or was she putting another impossible burden on the one player already carrying the league's biggest spotlight? Drop your answer in the comments, hit like if you want more WNBA breakdowns like this, and subscribe so you do not miss the next one.